Got it.
Hi, everyone. I am Jennifer from EntryLevel. EntryLevel helps you learn and get experience so that you can get hired. So today I'm joined by Ati, one of EntryLevel's previous students. Ati actually received a growth marketing certificate with us a few months ago and used the framework she learned in our program in her job interviews. So Ati, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Jennifer. My name is Ati. I am normally based in Perth, Western Australia, but I'm currently in Malaysia. Our company offers 100% remote working opportunities, so I'm working from here for a month. I'm currently a growth marketer at ClearCalcs. ClearCalcs provide a software for structural engineering, design and analysis for residential building. I've just joined this role in January this year. Prior to this, I was with a hardware crane automation startups, and my background is sort of a mix of marketing and communications in the last 8 or so years before moving into growth marketing.
That's awesome. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm so excited to have you share your story with our audience and hopefully inspire other people who want to be just like you. So my first question for you is to tell us some more of your story. Like, what was your learning journey like in the very beginning?
Yeah. Do you want to, is this specifically related to growth marketing with EntryLevel?
It can be just like from the start of your career until like how you found growth marketing as a career.
Right. Cool, awesome. This is going to be a long story. So I actually, my first degree is in biotechnology. I did my first degree in Malaysia. And then when, during my 3rd year, I realized that I don't want to spend my time in the lab for the rest of my career, studying genetics or studying bacteria. And then realized I like writing more than running experiments. So I decided to do my postgrad to understand more how can I connect the two worlds, science. I was doing environmental biotechnology at the time. So basically the world of environment, the world of climate change and technology in science, and how do I connect them with writing stories. So I decided to pursue my master's at New South Wales University in Sydney. It was a multidisciplinary program where I get to pick different electives. And I remember my first subject was on media advocacy and public education. So basically in that unit, we were learning how the top not-for-profit, environment not-for-profit like Greenpeace, WWF, how did they run their environmental campaigns and how did they design them? So that brought me to the world of communications. So when graduating, after graduating from that course, my first job is a research analyst and sort of a risk communications officer for a funded project by the European Union in Malaysia. So this was 10 years ago. We don't have a term of what we call now a climate tech accelerator, but that's essentially what it was. We work with 40 companies that we select in Malaysia that runs a project that convert waste to energy. And then we help them get funding, increase their capacity to export overseas and any other sort of trainings that they need to improve as a company. So my job basically is to sort of from, if we look at a growth funnel from acquisition, sort of promoting the initiative to SMEs in Malaysia, sort of reaching out to about 1,000 of them and then getting them to apply to be a part of the project, and then sort of activating them and then running the project for 3 years with them. So that exposes me to the world of digital marketing and communication. So I'm doing a lot of website maintenance, putting information, like creating newsletters, monthly newsletters that goes out to the project stakeholders, running social media to sort of push out the content of the projects. And that got me interested in sort of digital marketing. And I also started doing some freelancing at the time. I worked with a marketing consultant that works with a US company. And my role then was solely to help with social media marketing. And was back in 2013 and 2014, where we do, and at the start of Canva. So we started using Canva, running landing pages and everything, looking at conversions. After that, I worked briefly in communications and public relations for a ports industry. And then I moved to Perth, where I got my first role as marketing and business development manager at RoboRigger. So this is the hardware startup that I mentioned earlier. So basically, RoboRigger is a crane automation startup. It's currently backed by Blackbird Ventures. And then during that role, I sort of had some reflections that I want to be improving in my role, what I want to be learning, and decided that growth marketing is one area that I want to look at. And then EntryLevel, being part of Blackbird, came up on my radar, and I thought, this is easy, was it a 2 months program that, I can join, and if I complete it, they would refund my money. So that was a no-brainer. So I decided to do growth marketing with EntryLevel. And I think I completed the program in about September, October last year, started to actively look for a new role, and landed this job by end of November last year.
That's
the rest
amazing.
is history.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about what you did after EntryLevel. But first, I wanted to make an interesting observation, because you said you had a background on science, like very experiment focused. And you also wanted to connect that with writing, communication, things like that. Do you find that those are connected in growth, because there's some experimentation, but there's also marketing?
Yes, definitely. I think what interested me in growth is that element of looking at data and using that data to inform your marketing initiatives. And I like the idea of looking at different funnels, like acquisition, activation, and knowing, what's the rate there and what can we do to improve. It's not just, some like blind initiatives that you do, as you know, with traditional marketing or public relations, where it's more of a long term and you can't really attribute what you're doing to the company's revenue or profits.
That's amazing. When I first got into growth, I didn't realize how much data there was and experimentation, and it's definitely really challenging, but I love a challenge. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Now, I'm wondering what you did after EntryLevel. So you said you completed the program, and then like a month later, you got a job. So what was the process there?
Yeah, so when I was doing EntryLevel, I already knew that I wanted to look for a new role, and especially in growth marketing. So what I decided to do then is, so just after completing the EntryLevel course, is the next step I did was I actually applied to and joined the StartMate Women Fellowship. I don't know if you've heard of them. So essentially, it's a sort of a 2 month program targeted to sort of women in all kinds of industries, and get them sort of the first, sort of the front row seat in the startup in Australia and New Zealand. So I got a coach to work with, and I decided that I want to talk to at least 10 to 15 companies that I'm interested in, and find out what growth marketing opportunities do they have and apply to that opportunities. So that's what I did in the span of from September to about mid-November. Just probably 2 to 3 hours a week, just talking to people every day. And then every time I go into the call with the company, so I try to go back to the framework that I've learned at EntryLevel and use that framework to sort of ask questions about their product.
Wait, so how were you getting these calls with the companies?
So with the StartMate Women Fellowship, because it's a network of startups and founders, essentially what you do is either you get an introduction by someone you know who knows them, or you just reach out to them by either cold email or cold LinkedIn messages. And because I was already in that StartMate Women Fellowship cohort, is also like an opportunity for anyone who's looking for talents. That's kind of their first point of contact. So they look at the profile, and if this is relevant, then they reach out to you as well.
That's amazing. So for the job that you landed, how did that whole process go from the meeting, what you talked about, like the frameworks and things like that?
Yeah. So with ClearCut, I was actually reached out by the head of talent at the at EVP. That's the VC company that backed ClearCut. So we just had a conversation about what kind of roles that interest me, and Fred from EVP suggested me a few companies and roles that he thinks that I'm suited with, and set me up to have a chat with Chris, the founder of ClearCut. And then I went in knowing already what's the requirement for the role as a growth marketer, and then sort of trying to understand, like in the call, trying to understand what's their problem, like how many people are they getting per month, how many website visitors, how many of them are they converting to trialists, how many of them are converting to subscribers, and using that information to sort of propose like a quick solutions or your thoughts on it based on what I learned at entry level during the interview. So after the first chat that I had with Chris, I just sent like a 2-page document about what I think their problems is in growth marketing and how I would try to solve it.
That's amazing. So you basically kind of did a project for them and went through it in the interview?
Yeah, so it's just a short one. It's not like I spend like a few days on it. It's probably like a couple of hours, and then using the framework that I learned from entry level.
Wait, did they ask for that project, or did you just do it to exceed expectations?
No, not for this company specifically. We didn't have any like specific project to work on, so it's just something that I wanted to send because obviously like sort of loved the company after I spoke to them, and I wanted to show that this is what I can do, this is what I'm planning to do if I join the company.
That's awesome. Do you have any tips on whether people should, like what kind of people should target like startups versus big companies? Because I noticed, I think you're working at a startup now, right?
Correct.
So
yes.
like,
So just finished their seed round last year.
oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, what should people look for if they want to work in a startup versus a big company?
I think it depends on what you are after. I was moving from a very generalist role and like a field unrelated to growth marketing. So I know I want to be sort of learning very quickly, getting my hands on everything as much as possible. So early stage startups is where I want to be at. And then also because I know if I apply for a bigger company, I will be sort of set in a specific area of marketing. So that's not where I want to be at the moment. So it really depends on everyone's objectives. And then the other thing is that sort of while you might look on an early stage startups, you also want to know whether there is an alignment of values. You know that they're working they have a system and operations in place. So those are sort of different areas that I would be looking at when I'm interviewing for different roles.
Yeah, I really agree with that, especially aligning with the values. To me, that's a lot more important, and it's what I look for, because sometimes I get super excited while researching a company, and it's like, oh, yeah. Now like I can go into the interviews with that energy, and it's less nerve-wracking.
Yeah, totally. And I think values first means that you can be flexible with, what the company is, who they are, like how big the team is. Even if you might think that you want to work for a big company, but if there are value alignment with early stage startups, I would say why not?
Yeah, I completely agree. Hopefully this is an insight that can be very useful to our audience and whoever is listening now. I just have one last question for you, and it's kind of generous. So what advice do you have for students who are also taking entry-level programs and looking to get a job?
Yeah, I think I would say, as in the spirit of growth marketing, keep testing and try to get sort of the results or outcome to your experiments fast if you're out in the market looking for a job, as in like, don't rely too much on sending online application to big companies where you might not get feedback only after 2 months. Try to, reach out to people so you can talk to them, understand what they're looking for, and find out if you can meet those requirements. So instead of waiting for 2 months, if you can find that out in one call, why don't you do that? So that's my advice. And then another thing is that instead of doing, let's say, 6 months to 1 year digital marketing course, why don't you talk to a company or talk to a startup, run a project for them for 1 to 3 months, and then you can learn all that you need. And you have a portfolio that you can show to prospective companies when you're interviewing for. So like, be smart about what you're doing so that you get your results faster.
Those are really good tips. And I'm wondering, like, do you have any tips on how to reach out and like get that meeting to talk to companies?
I would say in that first email. So firstly, warm intros are always best. So if you know someone who knows someone, try to get your friend or colleague to introduce you. Secondly, if you have to do cold outreach, try to make it as easy as possible for the other person to say yes or no to you. So generally what I would say is, hey, so-and-so, my name is Ati. Sort of highlight a points of similarity, like we currently work in the same industry, and I'm interested in sort of knowing more about this role at the company. I would like to set up a call with you. Would you be available in the next 2 weeks to chat with me? If yes, I will send you some options for time. So that way, they can just reply to that email, no, I'm not available to chat, or yes, I'm available to chat, and just send an options for time.
So do you also use Calendly? Because we use Calendly to set it up. Or do you find that are you available within the next 2 weeks works better?
I personally find are you available for the next 2 weeks better, because it's just the first email is just the first objective to get whether they're interested in chatting with you or not. And just keep the call to action one at a time, and trying not to overwhelm the other person. It could be different if you already know that person or it's a warm intro.
Okay, so the main call to action there is just reply yes or no whether they're available?
Yeah. And then that might be different with the warm intros, because that person already said yes to your friend or your colleague that, yes, we're happy to chat. Then you can put that option stop in that first email.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for the tips and for sharing your story with us, Ati. So for everybody listening or watching, if you'd like to follow Ati on her journey, please check out the links to her Twitter and LinkedIn profiles. I'll link them somewhere in the description. But if you can't find the description, Ati, do you want to share like the handle?
Yeah, let me just get this right. I don't think I remember. So no LinkedIn. Problem.
I think LinkedIn is just
Ati Aziz. Yeah, and then Twitter is Ati_Aziz.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So yeah, hopefully people will be able to find you if they have any questions.
Yeah.
I think you said you also had one other thing to promote. Would you like to talk about that now?
Yeah, cool. So at ClearCut, our team is growing very rapidly. So when I first joined in January, there were about 8 or 9 of us, and now we are about 22. And obviously, marketing team is growing as well, and we are currently on the lookout for a marketing content lead who will be working with me very closely to set up our content distribution across different channels. So if anyone is interested, feel free to reach out to me via my LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you're interested in this job opportunity, feel free to reach out to Ati. You can also visit entrylevel.net if you're more interested in just learning, because we do have a program on marketing. So if you want to brush up on your marketing skills or just learn what it's about so that you feel more confident applying for jobs, check out entrylevel.net. I believe the marketing course was the one that you took, right, Ati?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone for listening and best of luck in your learning. Bye.